We are live, everyone, on Facebook and YouTube, but y'all know the deal by now. One of the Facebook pages just decided it's not going to be pretty, so I have to be a little silly. Anyways, hello and welcome back to Retrieving Sanity. We're here today to explore the complexities of vulnerability and strength, especially in the context of healing from trauma. And to get an idea of what I'm talking about today, we have special guest Malisa Hepner here, and we're going to have her tell us about her story of childhood trauma and how she's healing through being open and vulnerable. So, Melissa Hebner, how are you doing today?
I'm good, man. How are you?
Well, I'm glad to hear that you're doing well. I'm doing fairly well myself. It was one of those days where it wasn't too busy, but it wasn't too slow, but it just kind of dragged on regardless.
Yeah, I think the eclipse tomorrow got us all down a little bit.
Yeah. I totally forgot about that. Thank you for jogging my memory on that.
Mm-hmm. I'm
So,
living in the eclipse.
oh, you're living in the eclipse. Well, what does that mean?
The energy is really strong, man. And well, first
Mm,
of all, I'm an Aries rising, and this eclipse
mm,
is closing out an Aries cycle because it's
ooh,
happening in Aries. So I'm really
mm,
feeling it. But we're winning over here. I'm passing all of the tests, and we're
ooh.
doing all right. We're doing good.
Hell yeah. That's what's up. I am so glad to hear that because if you have a story of childhood trauma, that's got to be one of those hard things to heal from. So if you're now in this winning phase of life, that is super cool. So why don't you tell me a little bit about what childhood trauma was for you in the context that it really got to you? And what I mean by that is everyone's pain is valid, right? So,
Right.
what was one experience that really stuck out to you that really maybe doesn't seem like that big of a deal to everyone else? That catches everyone's attention, but like I want that one that's just kind of like, ooh, that one.
I know what you're saying. Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay, so I like if you're familiar with the ACE score, the adverse childhood experiences, I have the highest score that you can have.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So like my childhood, are we allowed to cuss here or no?
Yeah,
My
by all
childhood
means.
was for real bad. Like, I mean, it wasn't as bad as others. Like, I mean, I've seen worse for sure,
Mhm.
um but what surprised me the very most and the part that was very covert was
Mhm.
okay, so I was raised primarily by my grandma
Mhm.
after a long back and forth period of like being removed from care from my mom and put in
Mhm.
my grandma's custody back and forth because it was the 80s and it was wild. I mean, it was the wild
Mm.
wild west in the 80s. Like you
Yeah.
didn't have to do hardly anything to get your kids back, and that's
Oh.
probably unfair, but the way they would
Hmm.
reunify now is very different. And so there was three of
Mhm.
us a year apart each, which would drive any mother crazy, but both of my parents were addicts. And
Oh.
um
I'm. S-
we initially my grandpa was in the picture too, but then he left us all too. He left my
Hmm.
grandma after 36 years of marriage for his best friend's wife, so he was a really good dude.
Oh
But
no.
all of the big stuff, like my parents died, like my dad died when I was 15 of a morphine overdose, and then my mom
Mm.
died when I was 22 and pregnant with my first kid of
Mm.
complications related to hep C and cirrhosis. During that hospitalization, we actually found out she was HIV positive as well.
Oh wow.
So, and she was incarcerated. So there was like a lot of incarceration through my childhood with both
Mhm.
parents. But all of that is really easy to pinpoint my trauma.
Mhm. Yeah.
None of that affected me the way my narcissist grandma did.
Ooh.
And narcissist other covert narcissist family members. So it was this
Mhm.
mental emotional stuff. I mean, believe me, I received plenty of abuse from my like parents, but my
Mhm.
grandma, the emotional abuse was so bad, and I was the golden child. She
Mm.
raised five kids before us, like her five kids, and other grandkids had come in and out a little bit before I was even born, but
Mhm.
she was so toxic. She was so toxic, and I wanted nothing but to please her and
Mhm.
to show her that like you are good and you do deserve one good kid out of all of us, you know.
Yeah.
And it was not until maybe 10 years ago that I really started to unravel like what that stuff did to me. The programming
Mhm.
of the only thing that matters is how you make us look.
Mhm.
Sorry, allergies are getting me down.
Oh, you're good. I totally
And just
understand.
a bunch of you're not good enough, you know? Like that
Mhm.
was the type of trauma that really stands out now as I've gone through healing. And then
Ah.
fast forward, like, first of all, it wasn't even until like 2016 that I learned of
Mhm.
trauma outside of what we were hearing about PTSD in veterans.
Mhm. Yeah.
And so I started to hear about trauma, and for the first time in my life, I was like, oh, there's a name to these things that I'm experiencing. And it's not just because I'm a bad person, because
Mhm.
I was a very reactive person. I
Mm.
woke up triggered, went to sleep triggered, in that state of survival, and it didn't matter what you were saying. Likely, I was going to be upset by it and just
Hmm.
react. Now,
Mhm.
like if I didn't know you, you were gonna get either freeze or fawn from me, and then I'd
Mhm.
just come home and just spew it all out on the people that did know me, like
Ah.
obviously in the safety of my home or whatever.
Mhm.
But
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
was I was really extra, and
Ah.
then I kind of went through these periods of chill and calm,
Mhm.
and then I just reached burnout like a couple of years ago in my
Ooh.
career. Like every area of my life, I was in a very, very, very dark place.
Mhm.
And then I think just like was continually re-traumatizing myself because of like my
Mm.
perception of the world was just
Mhm.
really toxic. And so
Yeah.
I had a pretty severe mental health crisis, and
Mhm.
coming out of that, I was like, okay, well, I mean, if we're not gonna die, we got to figure this out. You know, like
Mhm.
gotta. What am I gonna do to make this better? And that's just kind of what I'm doing. But I would say, you know, to answer your question, which I didn't do like at
You
the end
totally
of all
did.
of that, but I did in the beginning. Just to summarize again, would be the stuff my grandma did.
Fair enough. And I love the extended explanations because that is your story. That is
Yeah.
all important. Every little aspect of that we can dive into, and each little bit of that is what made you you. So without that, we wouldn't have this conversation. So,
Right.
first of all, I would like to offer my condolences for such hardships, for
Thank
such
you.
losses, and everything like that because I know that's not easy. And I can only imagine just what you've been through would have broken me, I'm sure. So, uh, congratulations on your
Thank
progress.
you.
Yeah, this is super awesome because it's a progress, right? You haven't hit that mark. It's something that you've always got to strive for. And you even kind of mentioned it that you didn't really know what trauma was until about 2016.
Yeah.
And if I've got to be honest, a lot of people really didn't because, like you said, the conversation was focused on veterans and PTSD.
Mm-hmm.
But now we have this open conversation about mental health in general. And trauma just happens to be, well, anything that's traumatic. And I'm sorry.
Well, but it's good that you're saying that
Mm
because people have to make a distinction even still, like big
hmm. Mm
T
hmm.
versus little T trauma.
Mm
But
hmm.
like people are not. I was really appreciating the question in its original form because I was
Mm
like,
hmm.
good for you. Because as a therapist, I see people day in and day out
Mm
that
hmm.
don't understand what trauma actually is, even these things that could be small. But
Mm
that's
hmm.
just because we're so used to minimalizing and
Yeah.
trivializing our own experiences the way our parents told us to.
Yeah. And that's one of those crazy things because you even had mentioned that it you didn't mention you said that it was those narcissistic behaviors that your grandma was doing and those are things that are small, they're
Mm-hmm.
almost microscopic, they're things that happen on the daily that get brushed under the rug and told it happens, that's the way things have always been. and
Mm-hmm.
because of
That's
that
exactly right.
and because of that the excuse just perpetuates and it only doesn't become a behavior for one person, it can become a behavior for generations. So,
Absolutely.
in a sense, you're breaking a cycle yourself. So,
Right. I mean, and I used to say that anyway, just from not meeting any of the statistics that, I was very likely to become,
mm,
just being raised in kinship foster care and whatnot. Um, but I now see all of the things that have been passed down to create this generational wounding.
Mhm.
Because God knows I did so much of that too. I mean, I
Mhm.
had a ton of narcissistic traits prior to this little healing journey and spiritual awakening because
Mhm.
I was just trying to protect myself. And
Yeah.
now I understand too. That's all
Mhm.
she was trying to do too. And
Mhm.
in this conversation, I'm not mad at her.
Yeah.
Other
Yeah.
times I am. You know, I try to hold space for both because I'm
Mhm.
allowed to, and
Yeah.
my higher self understands
Mhm.
all of it. I get it. But this human who experienced some real hardship with her,
Uh-huh.
I mean, I'm a little mad at her sometimes, you know. But the
Mhm.
more I mess up, the more compassion I can have for everyone around me, and she's gone now too. But you know, I think that's the
Mm.
really important part of the type of healing that I have done is when you're healing all that ancestral wounding, you
Mhm.
really do get to this place where you can have so much compassion for yourself
Mhm.
and then extend that to everyone because I remember being like I do that too. I get it. You know, I mean, and now it's just like more stuff like that every day. Well, and
Mhm.
even just like you saying something about a destination that's or met the mark or something like that's really something
Mhm.
I've had to learn is that like you just continue to level up or you stay stagnant or move backwards, but like we're not getting any like to a certain point in life, and I had
Mhm.
to decide like I'm worthy and valuable in this moment, exactly who
Mm.
I am I going to continue to evolve? Yeah, I mean I want to more than anything. I want to be like so in touch with my highest self, you know, but
Uh-huh.
at the same time I think so much of that connection with your higher self really does entail accepting that like I'm
Mhm.
perfect exactly how I am. I don't need to strive to change all of these
Mhm.
damn things about myself. Like yes, you have to make reparations when you harm others and yes, you have to apologize. I'm not saying that, but
Mhm.
none of us were designed to be perfect. We were
Mm.
designed to fail and for failure to be where the best gifts in your life come from,
Mhm.
not from all the things that our parents taught us to do, which was be perfect, be perfect. And damn,
Mm.
unraveling perfectionism, I will tell you what, like it
It's
sneaks
hard.
every day. I'm like, wait, was I just
Uh-huh.
trying to be perfect again?
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah. And perfectionism comes in that little form of I'm always, and this is from personal experience, I'm always comparing myself to some imaginary graph or bar line that says, hey, I either did good enough or not good
Mm-hmm.
enough. And that bar is usually way up high. And so sometimes even my best is not good enough. And
Mm-hmm.
that came from childhood, and it came from reinforcement in teenage years, and then self reinforcement and addiction.
Yeah.
So, yeah, so for myself, it perfectionism sucked.
Yeah,
So
it
how?
sucks the life out of you.
Yeah, it really does. It's one of those things that it feels. I think that's honestly the best way to put it because it's not necessarily a weight. It does feel
Mm-hmm.
like there's something pulling on you all the time.
All the time. Yeah.
And I never really was able to place it until really just now. And it's kind of like in the shoulders, and right there. I get mine a little bit in the chest too, but mine makes
Yeah.
me feel like I'm not good enough. So my
Mm-hmm.
posture
Yeah, you
wants to.
contract, you
Mm-hmm.
tense. Yes, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Right, and that's what trauma does to us.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what being taught to abandon yourself at every turn does. That's
Mm-hmm.
what the idea that we have to make other people comfortable at all cost. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that was really the harm done to me with my grandma is this
Mm-hmm.
non-stop pestering of what are people going to say, and really a book that changed my life is called The Finding Peace Workbook. It's by Troy Love. It's on
Mm-hmm.
Amazon for like $25. I make all my clients buy it because it changed my life. It
Okay.
breaks shame down into different archetypes because when you get
Oh.
really serious about addressing the subconscious noise that you're
Mm-hmm.
not fully aware of but you know it's there, like i
Mm-hmm.
i almost had auditory voices. Like it was so loud in my
Mm-hmm.
brain. And I got like curious about it,
Mm-hmm.
and then my thoughts slowed enough and quieted enough for me to be able to actually pull out a sentence of the things I was saying to myself. And
Mm.
oftentimes we are shaming ourselves to do more and achieve more, or to keep things looking perfect. And that
Mm-hmm.
is just an archetype of shame. And whenever I was able to
Mm.
like, oh, oh no, I know this archetype. And that's what I realized. Every ounce of noise in my head was me
Uh-huh.
shaming myself over something.
Mm.
At the same time, I'm telling people, you gotta love yourself. Like, I didn't know. Like, I thought I liked myself. I thought I knew myself. Like, and then I'm like, oh, this is why I wish I was dead, because I got this thing up here, six different voices telling me in six different ways how
Mm.
bad of a person I am. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I get really emotional sometimes when I think about what a dark place I was in, because I wasn't perfect, because
Yeah.
I wasn't meeting anyone's expectations, or
Mm-hmm.
and that was all perception. And I was literally going to end my life over some
Yeah.
dumb stuff like that. And now I'm like, dang man, you needed someone like you. But that's why I do what I do now, is that I don't
Mm-hmm.
ever want anyone to not understand when you get over that like darkness, that you can look back and be like, oh,
Mm-hmm.
I was so hard on myself. Like,
Yeah.
and there wasn't going to be an enough point. Not
Yeah.
in that, you know?
Mm-hmm. And you bring up a lot of really good things. And one of the things that you brought up earlier kind of ties into everything now, and that's holding space.
Mm,
So you had mentioned holding space in the sense of being angry and
mm-hmm.
being compassionate. So it's interesting because you also find yourself, or found yourself rather, in this paradox that you're having to sit there and be strong for everyone else and sit there and tell them that they can be kind and compassionate to themselves, yet you're almost like a rubber band ball yourself.
Yeah.
Um, and so untangling that is got to be hard. So, how do you hold space for being compassionate towards yourself while being able to be true to your feelings, your human self, you know? Does that make sense?
It does, but I'm in such a different life now than I was then.
That it's hard to
I
compare.
a little bit, but I quit my full time job and kind of just said I'm gonna just build the life of my dreams, right? And I'm kind
Yeah.
of living that. I mean, not financially yet, but everything else. I that's the thing, is that like I try to be very transparent about this journey, because I never
Mm.
want anyone to think, well, if it was easy for her, so it should be easy for me. Baby, it ain't easy, and you just
Oh
keep
no.
trucking. We're gonna be all right. But I would say now I'm just in such a different, like, nothing is the same.
Mm-hmm.
But it really took understanding that that's what I had done my entire life, was
Mm.
make everyone around me a project to focus on, so that I didn't have to deal with it. That's how I avoided
Oh.
all of that pain all of those years, and why I stayed in that very masculine, tense place all the time, because I was avoiding. And
Uh-huh.
so I was the best friend, because we ain't got to talk about me for 1 minute, baby. I'm going to put all my love and light on you all the time. And then when I'd go through a hard time, I'd be like, I'm on the periphery of all my friendships. Nobody loves me. Well, yes, baby, because you put yourself surrounded with emotionally unavailable people to
Mm.
caretake after, so that I didn't have to take care of myself. I mean, granted, it was all subconscious. I didn't know that, but
Mm-hmm.
that was the beginning of unraveling. Was like, oh,
Mm.
I don't even know how to identify a feeling, let
Mm.
alone experience a feeling. Everyone says you just feel it and release it. Well, thank you, Buddha, but how? Because I'm over here like thinking 1,000 thoughts a second, and like,
Uh-huh.
and I'm all mad, and I mean, aggressive, but like, how do you do that? And I
Mm-hmm.
remember the first time that I really sank into my body and I felt it.
Mm.
I was like, I didn't even know how to identify that I needed to check in. So I came up with a system
Okay,
that
what
said,
is it?
Melissa, if you're really tense, like, in your neck, back, and
Uh-huh.
shoulders, and it's starting to hurt, you got to check in because that usually means you're overthinking. So I'm in the
Mm.
car. I note my back is killing me, and I was like, oh yeah, I'm kind of mad. What's going on here? Not unusual for me in the car at that time,
Mm-hmm.
but still, I was like, oh yes, I was just fighting with someone in my head. So I was like, okay, what is your advice? Which is always, if you're up here, you're not here, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And so I was like, get out of your head into your heart, out of your head into your heart. What are you feeling? Well, I had just gotten really good at identifying like which wound something hit. And
Ooh.
betrayal is really big for me, but
Mm-hmm.
it was again kind of sneaky to identify all the ways in which I felt betrayal
Mm.
and the ways that I assigned it, and it's just natural. It's my natural instinct. So I'm
Mm-hmm.
driving, I'm like, okay, what wound did that hit? And I was like, well, and there's like a checklist I had learned through, it's like, well, this happened, this. I was like, oh, betrayal, okay. Oh, yeah, that does make sense. Oh, yeah, I feel betrayed. And it was like
Oh.
there, like I felt a physical drop out of my
Mm.
brain into my body. Like I had embodied myself for the first time in 44 years. It was nuts. It was a spiritual experience, even because I was like, wait, what? It's like I've told this story before, or
Oh
used this
man.
analogy before, but
Uh-huh.
you seem much younger than me, but you may know that movie Ghost with Patrick Swayze,
Mm-hmm.
like from a bajillion years ago. That was one of my
Uh-huh.
faves. Us Gen Xers, we know about it. Like whenever they would enter the body,
Yeah, yeah.
then they're like, oh, I got a soul in me.
Yeah.
That's how I felt. Like it was. I almost used the word radical. What is wrong with
Oh
me?
man.
But it was a very crazy feeling, and then I knew like, oh, my entire life I didn't know how to feel. I was
Mm.
intellectualizing every single interaction and experience my whole life. I'm trying to break it
Oh.
down, break it apart, analyze it, categorize it. That's not feeling. If you are up here thinking about something, it's because you are avoiding feeling. And it's
Huh.
still something that I have to be like, oh, I was overthinking. What am I avoiding?
Mm. I love that. That is some really deep insight, and it really does sound like you were reactive in the way that you unraveled, which is great
Mm
because
hmm.
if it unraveled slowly, that wouldn't really seem to have that profound
No.
effect.
Right. And
Because,
it's funny that you noted that because that's how every ounce of my transformation's been. It's like an
mhm,
aha moment, another one, another one. Like to where I was
yeah.
like, is this spiritual psychosis? I'm not so sure.
Well, and that's the thing too is that whenever we start dealing with spiritual, quote unquote, and quote unquote mental health, it gets a little fuzzy, and that's
Yeah.
where a lot of people decide to either jump off the deep end or just turn around and do a 180 and forget all
Right.
about either or.
Right.
So,
I mean,
um,
you certainly do not have to be spiritual to clear up your
no,
mental health.
no,
You
and that,
do not. You
mhm,
don't at all. It just happened to happen on my journey, but I
mhm,
know plenty of people who are really good advocates and do really good mental health work, and they're not
mhm.
spiritual.
Yes, and that's a thing too because in AA and NA and stuff like that, they use the term spiritual experience, or in the doctor's note, he calls it a psychic change,
Yeah.
or a psychic shift. And so it's one of those things that it doesn't happen when we want it to happen.
Right.
So I
It was
love,
nuts. I mean, I was like, oh, I might be losing it.
and it's one of those things that you're going to remember for the rest of your life.
Mm-hmm.
And you've now been able to sit here and turn it around, and you're using all of that experience, all of that past stuff to really help out other people. So, what is one of your favorite ways that you help other people right now?
Um, Honestly, I think I probably it's hard to choose between therapy and my podcast
I'd have to
because
say,
I get so much out of both. Like, because I actually don't have any like separation between who I am as a
mm-hmm,
professional and who I am in my personal life. Like, I just
uh-huh,
decided you're gonna get every ounce of who I am, but that's
yeah,
my magic. Like,
mm-hmm,
I'm not gonna play act a therapist, and
you
I'm not
can't
gonna
do that.
play act a podcast host or a public speaker, any of that. My magic is in my story and like my passion about things. So like I
Mm-hmm.
can't do those things and be good at them if I'm just pretending. So I
Mm-hmm.
just decided like I'm not going to do unethical stuff, but my clients, they know I when we meet I say the F word a lot, every other word. I'm going to vape. I'm going to this is like if I'm
Yeah.
not for you, that's not going to hurt me at all.
Oh
Like
yeah.
this is your consultation. You're interviewing me. Like I don't
Mm-hmm.
care. Like that's okay. I'll take you. You can be my client. That's fine. But like you need to know it's going to come with a lot of cuss words. And
Mm-hmm.
one of my favorite taglines is like saying to people that I don't do a lot of leading you to water. I do a lot
Mm-hmm.
more of waterboarding you with information. Because I'll be like, no, baby, you are programming your subconscious in real time. You don't talk about yourself like that. And then I just start like shoving information at them, like, no,
Oh
that's
man.
not, no, you can't, no. Yeah,
I,
so,
I
yeah, we're
love
real
that.
passionate over here.
I love that. And fake, you can't pretend being compassionate. It's one of those
Right.
things that someone is going to sniff it out and they're going to be
Mm-hmm.
able to see it a mile away. And if someone still wants you to be a therapist and you are like that, then I'm sorry, but you shouldn't be.
Right.
It's one of those things that you have to put yourself out there if you want other people to do the same. And
Right. No, I say that all the time. I'm like, if you're hiding who you are, then your people can't find you. And
mm-hmm,
they are looking for you
yeah,
actively, day in and day out. They are
yep,
looking for someone like you who
mm-hmm,
has everything that they are supposed to get from another interaction. I mean,
mm-hmm,
people are put in your path for a reason, but no
yep,
one's gonna like you can't be a beacon if you're hiding all of your light. Like
mm-mm.
I do understand it, but I don't know why I keep saying this on shows, and I feel like I'm going to make some enemies saying this, but I have a real problem in this space when I'm coming up against, that wasn't the right words, but like
Mm,
I'm meeting a lot of people, right?
mm-hmm,
And then I'm meeting a lot of males in the personal development space, okay?
mm-hmm,
And I'm just alarmed at the number of people out there who are perfectly content with muscling through and white knuckling their life
mm,
using some good phrases, but that's all they are is just
mm-hmm.
some, I can't think of the word, but
It is what
they're
it
just
is.
using these taglines over and over to try to like use the finite amount of self-control, discipline, control and motivation that we are given in any
Mm,
24-hour period rather than like using your spirit and dealing with the emotions
mm-hmm,
and then shifting that mindset is everything, and I am the first person to say that, but you can't shift your mindset for real when you're just repeating some phrases someone told you.
mm-hmm,
Like it feels very drill sergeant, very in your face of, do you want this better life or not? And listen, if that's you, that's an excellent first step.
mm-hmm,
That's a beautiful first step. But that's what it is a
mm-hmm,
first step. You have to figure out how to not avoid your feelings anymore. And that's what I'm
mm-hmm.
seeing way too many people doing. Some people call it spiritual bypassing.
Hmm.
There's a lot of different words for it, but
Yeah.
it's just alarming to see how many people are out there. It hurts me to think there are that many people suffering to that degree that
Mm-hmm.
this feels like manna from heaven for them. These
Mm,
words, this boot camp drill sergeant in your face telling you,
mm-hmm.
put the ice cream down or whatever the rude stuff is, and I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, what if what if you just figured out how to love yourself, you know? Like
Yeah.
what if you just did that?
Yeah. And it's hard to do that though, because especially in the male aspect, because
Mhm.
as a male, I'm taught I don't have feelings, or if I do, and I've covered this before, is that I'm, what order is it? Happy, angry, hungry, and horny. Ha!
Mhm.
That's all I.
Yeah.
That's as a male. That's all I can be is ha, and it doesn't get me
Yeah.
very far. And I can't
Right.
communicate with that. That's one consonant and one vowel. You know that
Yeah.
makes ha 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 ha. That is not a personality. That is just a shell of someone. And I think that a lot of guys are really just wanting to have their personality be accepted, and kind of
Yeah,
like
I
what
could see that.
you were saying is that everyone is seeking out their clan, everyone is seeking out their village, and it is
Yeah,
part of that survival aspect. But in today, we have cell phones, we have the internet. We don't have to be real anymore. What do you
right.
think on that?
Ooh. Um, as someone who's really using the internet to build a community right now, because I think I think what's striking me the most though about what you just said, so I have to say this,
Mm-hmm.
is I think that men and women have
Mm-hmm.
a little bit of misconception about what the other was taught about feelings. So
Mm.
absolutely as a child I know men weren't allowed to have them, not
Mm-hmm.
just like you can't show them. You're
Mm-hmm.
the man of the house, right?
Yeah.
But as girls, we were allowed to have them, but only if we
Mm-hmm.
never said a word about them. Like
Yeah, you can't show
obviously,
them.
oh, you're crying, you need a minute. Okay, go be alone to have your cry.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody gave a shit though.
Yeah.
Because the same reason I didn't give a shit about my kids crying before I got my shit together,
Mm-hmm.
because I couldn't handle the fact that I couldn't fix it.
Mm-hmm.
My shame told me like I'm not good enough because I can't fix whatever they're crying about, so I have to dismiss their crying
Mm-hmm.
to dismiss that discomfort in myself.
Mm.
So I would love if more women and men understood themselves better,
Mm-hmm.
because then you would understand like we're just a mirror of each other. We are
Mm-hmm.
not different.
Yep.
I feel closer to men in my new reality than I have ever, because I'm like, oh, well, you have the same shit I do. Like, yeah, there's some difference, but like, nah, y'all really just the same as us. I mean, we're all women are just as unemotional. Like, we're
Mm-hmm.
willing to accept that we have them, but
Mm-hmm.
then like we shove them off. Like, none of us are
Mm-hmm.
dealing with it either unless someone teaches us how to. I'm
Yep.
so happy to know that there are so many people out there teaching people how to feel, but who
Mm-hmm.
knew that you'd need that? But
Yeah.
like, it's a real thing. Your
Mm-hmm.
brain wasn't designed to feel, it was designed to keep you alive. So it's
Mm-hmm.
not gonna do any of the warm fuzzy stuff for you.
Yeah. And
I don't
it's
think I
really
answered your
interesting.
question. I'm sorry.
No, no, you're fine. But blah, blah, blah. You bring up a really, really good point though, and that's the sheer fact that even though in I made the mistake of focusing on the male aspect because the females obviously have their fair share of things too. And I have probably a bias because I'm a middle child and the only male. So I kind of
I'm
got
a
the
middle child and the only female in my little. That's so cute.
oh wow. So it seems like we're almost mirrors of each other in a sense. So this is
Always. Well, you're a Leo sun and I'm a Leo moon too.
yeah. See, this is very strange. And right before we started recording, we were even talking about synchronicities and
Mm-hmm.
podcasting. And I didn't really expect it to go down this rabbit hole, but here we are.
Hey, that's what you get with me. You're welcome.
Well, I really appreciate it. And it's super awesome because we need conversations like this. And it's one of those things that again, if we don't have them and if we don't have people willing to listen to them, then we can't actually do anything with it.
Mm-hmm.
So, how do you like to spread your message? How do you like to get your story out there for other people to hear?
Well, let's see. My preferred way is probably on my podcast. I talk a lot. It's an interview. No, it's not. It's just conversations like this. But like, I'm not asking anyone questions except for like, just after you start a conversation, just normal organic questions. I
Mm-hmm.
think that throws people off sometimes. But I love like I just one of the things that I had to learn was it's okay to talk about myself,
Mm-hmm.
and I didn't I felt very silenced. That was a really big theme in my
Mm.
life. So when I
Mm.
started my show, I was like, oh my God, I get to talk all the time. This is so great. But that's how I process. That's how I get in the depths of my feelings, is just talking.
Mm.
So I love the types of conversations that we have because I have a lot of different types of people on, but as I've kind of grown into the role of podcast host,
Mm-hmm.
I I've been like evolving on, like maybe you feel uncomfortable directing the ship at the beginning, and now I'm like,
Mm.
okay, so now we're gonna talk about what I want to talk about. But like I pretty much will steer all the conversations to, that's so cool that you're doing this, but I want to know how you got here.
Mm-hmm.
Like I want you. I want to know what your story is. I love your product. We'll talk about your product
Mm-hmm.
or your service or whatever, but I
Mm-hmm.
want to talk about you because that's
Right.
how I bond. So let's
Mm-hmm.
bond.
Yeah.
So I love that. Really, honestly, any synergetic exchange where I'm just exchanging energy with someone is my
Mm-hmm.
favorite way to get my stuff out there. But I finally kind of just had to accept, like, A, it's okay to talk, it's okay to
Mm-hmm.
share, and
Mm-hmm.
also just like saying out loud that I understand that my gift is in sharing my story. Like
Mm.
and that part of my purpose was to go through things, experience them, get on the other side, and then share that light with others. Like that's how I'm choosing to make an impact in the world, is to say, you can absolutely do this. If I can do it, because that's, I mean, everyone who listens to my podcast know, like, I'm so honest about all the psycho stuff I've ever done. But like, if I can overcome these things that I used to be sure were not within my control and that I
Mm-hmm.
was just a victim to, like, I did not know I could ever chill out and not be bothered in traffic, and all the things that were such a big deal to me before. um but I also, I do some public speaking, like conferences, and
Mm-hmm.
doing, like, I am collaborating with a few other people in a little project we call the Empowerment Exchange. And
Ooh.
actually, it's a workshop summit thing we're putting on April 5th. And
Ooh.
right now, until I believe the 31st, we have 2 for 1 on the general admission.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have a deal on the VIP tickets, to where if you pay for the VIP experience along with all the other free stuff, you actually get to book a free session with each of us,
Ooh.
which is a big value. Like, it's valued
Mm-hmm.
over $800 because,
Wow.
like, I mean, we're good at what we do.
Hell yeah.
But so I like to do that, and I've spoken at symposiums. I'm going to Seattle next month to speak at a thing, but
Ooh.
I want to do a lot more of that. But I
Uh-huh.
love one-on-one conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Love one-on-one conversation because I kind of read energies, and just, if it's good energy, it just flows back and forth, and I'm
Mm-hmm.
getting a gift too. So
Yeah. And it's one of those things, we're a mirror for each other, and whatever you put out is also what you get back.
yeah,
So it is one of those things that it's weird whenever you're doing it with a mirror, because you both feel like you came out of it with something and actually feel like successful. I guess maybe not
yeah,
successful, maybe more like fulfilled would be the
yeah,
better answer.
yeah. Well, that's what's crazy, is like, I'll get out of a therapy session. Like, at the end, sometimes I'm like, well, thanks for the therapy, to my client, because, like, I feel so good, like, so happy. I can be having the worst day ever and hop on
Mm-hmm.
with a guest or a
Uh-huh.
client, and just be like, oh, I forgot I was in a bad mood earlier. But that's part of healing too, is that,
Yeah.
an hour of bad doesn't, like, ruin a whole
Mm-hmm.
week. Like, I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, I had a rough hour. I don't want to live that life. How do I get my peace back? How am I going to be in my joy?
Yeah. So that actually leads to a great question for me. Whenever we're going through healing, whenever we're doing inner work, shadow work, whatever you want to call it, we come across something that we find, and some of us aren't very familiar with it and their feelings, or just, little tiny things along the way. But they can be uncomfortable, right? So, what is probably the most uncomfortable feeling that you deal with, and how do you actually break out of that feeling whenever you're kind of in it?
Do you mean feelings upon like a revelation or just in
Ooh.
general?
How about if we were to use a wheeling chart, a wheel chart, a feel wheel?
Okay. So what I do on feelings is
Mm-hmm.
I decided there are like way too many words for feelings, right?
Uh-huh.
So I just link or trace any feeling back to one of those like wounding labels, so like abandonment,
Mm.
rejection, betrayal, neglect, abuse.
Okay.
What I found was, and I was semi cognizant of this before healing, but it made
Mm.
no sense and I had so much shame about it. But
Mm.
betrayal. Betrayal is what I
Mm.
feel more often than not because I feel so let down by people. And,
Oh.
in childhood, when you have
Hmm.
addict parents,
Mm-hmm.
you have parents who are real inconsistent, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
they love you so much, and in that moment they mean it. They mean they're gonna get you that or come see you then, or they mean it.
Mm-hmm.
But life happens and they don't show up, and they never showed up for me ever. They
Mm.
ruined it every time. So I had all
Mm.
this betrayal,
Mm-hmm.
and it left me feeling a desire to seek feeling special and to seek feeling chosen. I just
Mm.
felt so unloved and so unseen, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, as I started to unravel all of this, I was like, oh, that was betrayal. And I could release the
Mm.
shame because it makes sense. I just told you how that wound was created, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Well, it could be, I'm embarrassed to tell you this, but this would cause
Mm.
it a lot. Somebody didn't take my advice or
Mm-hmm.
took someone else's opinion but not mine,
Mm.
or took someone's side in other ways
Mm-hmm.
over mine.
Mm-hmm.
You'd get cut off for that. I mean, you were done,
Mm.
we're done, you're not my friend anymore. Like, that's it. You enemy. So
Mm.
I pushed a lot of people away because I'm
Mm-hmm.
very rejection sensitive. But betrayal comes up a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm so grateful to understand what exactly that feels like so that I can be like, oh, that's another way that like that brings up betrayal in me. Like, oh, interesting, I can be curious about that now.
Uh-huh.
Before, because your opinion's different than mine, I'm like so upset. And I could remember feeling like, I know that's not right. Like,
Mm.
something is not right about that. And yet I feel very intense about this. So how do I go from my logical self says you're being crazy to then integrating that thought and doing something about it? No idea. No idea. So,
Hmm.
I would just behave very badly. The focus would
Mm-hmm.
then become on that behavior,
Mm-hmm.
and then I'd have to ask for forgiveness and we'd move through.
Mm.
Never addressed the feeling that I had felt, which was betrayal. I feel that
Ah.
a lot. And also, like I said, I'm very rejection sensitive.
Mm-hmm.
So it doesn't take much for me to be like, rejection, cool, got it. You're cut off. That's good. Yep. Because the second I feel
Oh.
it, I'm gonna cut you off because I
Mm-hmm.
reject before I can be rejected.
Mm-hmm.
That was a sad one to learn. Like,
Mm.
because I felt very justified in that
Yeah.
old reality to
Mm-hmm.
do that. In my head, it wasn't I'm being rejected. It was
Mm-mm.
they are toxic. They're
Mm-hmm.
not showing up for me.
Mm-hmm.
They're selfish. They don't love me the way I love them.
Mm-hmm.
But when I got to understand, like, oh, it was me. I was the problem. Cute. I had to mourn that. I had to mourn
Mm-hmm.
and really grieve. Like, okay, we've lost some people we wouldn't have lost, but I also am so sure that all of that is in a divine plan somewhere. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm fine with that now. I mean, I do still like. I'm working up the nerve and have been for about 5 months to call
Mm-hmm.
someone that I just ghosted, like
Mm.
in 2012, 2013.
Oh boy.
I know, but I
That's
haven't
that's a
worked up the
while.
nerve. But I like really want to apologize. But I
Mm-hmm.
don't know why I'm scared to. Well, vulnerability. But also, like, I don't want them to think that I'm apologizing because I'm asking them to accept it in a
Mm-hmm.
way the where they're gonna accept me back in their life. I mean, obviously I would
Mm-hmm.
love that, but like,
Yeah.
I don't need that either. I just need them to know, like, I know it was me. I'm sorry. I
Mm-hmm.
thought you really did me dirty. It was me.
Yeah.
Oops.
Uh.
But like, that was sad. That was a really hard
Mm-hmm.
realization that, like,
Mm.
because someone told me that once, like, you push everyone away. And I'm like, you're
Uh.
crazy. You're
Mm-hmm.
crazy. Me? because I mean that's the whole thing. Like my show's called Emotionally Unavailable because I
Uh-huh.
didn't know that I was emotionally unavailable. And when I learned that, it was like crazy town to me. And then I started looking, I'm like, "Oh my god, this is all of us. We're all doing this. We're all doing this."
Yeah. Emotionally unavailable.
Mhm.
So that's the name of your podcast,
Yeah.
and that is really how a lot of people are walking around nowadays. It is sad.
Most, if you haven't healed it, that's what you're doing. You are
Hmm.
avoiding your feelings at all costs.
Yeah, and I think that it's safe to say that there's always another layer of feelings beyond what you're feeling at the moment.
Mhm.
uh, there's another layer that you can go deeper, or another layer that you can build on top of what you're feeling so you don't feel that again for a while.
Right.
Um,
Absolutely. That's a good point. Mhm.
because a lot of, I know whenever I started feeling happy again for once, whenever I was in rehab, I was like,
Yeah.
what is this feeling? I don't like it. Get it away from me right
Scary,
now.
right?
Yeah, it was terrifying.
You were
And
afraid to get your hopes up again.
yeah, and so I was
Yeah.
like, nope, I don't want it. And I was talking to my therapist in there, and she was like, no, you were feeling happy. You were starting to feel again. And I was like, you can keep it. Thank you. I'm like,
I was numbing for a reason.
yeah, that's why I almost died from alcoholism, you know. So we're just going to go ahead and just, how else can I white knuckle this? And guess what? There's
Right?
not.
Yeah. I
So,
well, because the idea of accepting the fact that you can feel happy, well,
mm-hmm,
first of all, comes with so much like weird working through shame, like do I deserve to be happy, all those
mm-hmm,
things. But also, if you accept happy as a feeling, then you have to accept the rest too.
yeah.
And you'd
And,
rather just be numb. I mean, you weren't running
mm-hmm.
from nothing.
Yeah, and that's the thing, is that I was running from so much I didn't need to be told anything I was running from. And any of those things being labeled good was not good, because I also have betrayal uh, wounds. So it's one of those things that, nah, I trusted that before and it did me dirty, so we're just going to take care of it now. Cut the head off the snake.
Exactly. That's
So,
exactly right. And you know what? That's what we're all doing. And
mm-hmm,
and so to something that you said a second ago about like the layers of feelings.
mm-hmm,
I think what the biggest revelation for me was is my response to anything
mm-hmm,
isn't an accident. And it didn't
mm,
just develop right then. That wasn't
ooh,
my initial response. This response was created a long time ago. It is triggering something
mm-hmm,
because obviously you are assigning meaning, morality, emotion, whatever to this
mm-hmm,
situation for a reason.
mm-hmm,
Not everybody would look at the way you are looking at the situation the way that you are. So that
mm-hmm,
means something shaped the way you are perceiving this. So
mm-hmm,
stop right then, because that's what I realized about driving myself crazy was staying so stuck on the thoughts and
mm-hmm.
perpetuating them forward, giving them so much gas. Whereas now I'm like, break and go, where'd that go from? What? You know?
Yeah, man. And being able to have those realizations really is just all right back to being that first step in healing. And I mean, it's just weird how you can actually have these cycles of healing without actually realizing that you're doing it. And then
Yeah.
once you realize that you're doing it, you're kind of like, never mind. Uh, but
Yeah.
real quick, we are nearing the end of this
Mm-hmm.
episode, and I hate it because this is such a good conversation that I
I
almost.
loved it.
It is amazing, but unfortunately, with that being near the end, what do you have for our listeners? Do you have any little golden nuggets of something that they can take with them? Any slogans, or do you got anything you just want to just
You know what? I'm
throw
gonna
at the
test
world?
this out because I've
All
I've
right,
just developed a framework with the help of a friend. Okay, so here's
alrighty.
my new framework for how to begin to live a life you're in love with, heal from the
Mm,
stuff, whatever you want to say for that.
alrighty.
Quiet the noise. So you got to
Mhm.
learn how to get all that overthinking to stop.
Mhm.
Connect to yourself. Learn to love yourself. Like I was talking to a guy this morning and he said it so beautifully that if you're out there looking to find yourself, it's time to build yourself. And you get to start
Ooh.
from wherever you want. That gets to look however you want it to. If you're going to create a life you're in love with, start designing it, man. You got to
Yeah.
connect with yourself. Be honest about how little you already know about yourself. Like, oops, yeah, do I have a favorite color? I don't know. What do I have a favorite genre of movie? You got to discover the small things and start with your non-negotiables. Like that's an
Mhm.
easy place to start, and then work on the things that you can figure out about like how you're not loving yourself well enough. And then the third
Mm.
is embody the light. Step into your own authority that you have as a human being on this earth. You can tap into your highest self. You can be spiritual, not be spiritual. You can do it however you want, but embody what your gifts are. Like you're whether you believe that your gifts are a purpose for you,
Mm.
anything that you do with passion is only going to serve your highest good. So,
Mm.
quiet the noise, connect to self, embody the light.
Mm. I love that. And that was your framework technique?
Yeah, that's my framework. Someone had to
Ah.
teach me what that meant. I was like, "Oh, that's so smart. Okay, I like that."
Well, that is awesome. It is simple and yet effective. And that is something that we need in everyday life. So, um, Melissa, it has been an absolute honor having you on the show.
Thank
And
you.
yes, I just have to say, everyone, go check out her podcast. If you enjoyed this podcast, which I hope you did, you better go check hers out because it's got to be even better. So, uh, but anyways, everyone out there listening, I just got to say thank you for listening to Retrieving Sanity. And thank you for listening on WDJY 99.1 FM. And check us out next week. I forget the exact topic because this one was so good, I just wanted to stay in it. So, anyways, with that, thanks for listening. Catch you next week. Shalom. All right. And stop.
Hilarious.
All right. And I don't mind if you